So say hi to everybody.
All right, we are called to order the Board of Commissioners in our scheduled finance meeting. It's April 27th, 10 o'clock. We have all three commissioners here, Commissioner Boyd, Morris, and DeGroot, as well as our finance leadership. And we have several items on our agenda. I won't pre-call them out, we'll go through them as we go through them. But we will start by looking at meeting minutes from our last time together in February.
Oh, those look fine.
That's good. All right, so this will go ahead and stand approved. Why don't we move into American Rescue Plan dollars, uses, and protocols? Vicki, what do you got for us?
We have, I don't think we have the updated spreadsheet.
No,
I don't
at
see
least
that.
I don't.
I don't see that one.
It's that one right there on top.
Oh, yeah, yours is bigger.
Okay, so Nathan's here to talk about some ideas he had about the funding. Public health has some ideas I can share, surveyor, museum, public works. Commissioner Morris had a couple of things, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the COBRA that's coming up. So maybe Nathan can share. First of all, let's look at this page though. This is the allowable use of the recovery funds. So we have responding to the public health emergency with respect to COVID-19 or its negative economic impacts. So this is basically we can do small, we can do grants to people, small businesses, nonprofits, tourism, travel and hospitality, restaurants. There are other means for restaurants and hospitality industries though to tap into some of the money. It's not part of this particular thing.
That opens back up May 30th.
So,
No, April 30th, pardon me.
so there are other avenues for those people as well. And then we are able to provide some premium pay to some of our essential workers. So if there are workers within the county that we would like to pay some extra wages to, we can do that. In my mind, I just kind of threw out there was some of the salaried employees that we have that have been working above and beyond for like over a year now. We might want to think about giving them some premium pay. The additional amount can be up to $13 per hour, but there's a cap of $25,000 for any single eligible worker. And we all know that a reduction in revenue is covered. So if we have revenues that have been reduced because of COVID, we can give we can give some of this money to those departments. And then investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. So those so far are the uses. This is not, just because there might be things that we think of that are not on this list, but this, you can see if they fit somewhere within these four things.
Yeah, like that paper I put together, I sent it to NACO, some of the people that are working with Treasury on guidance, and I got some decent feedback. Majority of those things would fit. But like you said, still waiting on guidance from Treasury for exactly.
I don't think we're going to get in exactly.
No,
to tell
but
you
just
the
a
truth,
little bit more detailed than this. This is just what's in the bill.
I do have some.
Hopefully.
I don't know if you want me to share my screen or not, but
Sure.
Let Nathan talk while I try to find.
One of the ideas I had come forth with was some kind of grant we could give for small businesses to help cover personal property costs for economic damage. We have the ability now in the assessor's office to make separate categories, figure out whichever category we determine would be necessary, and we could, get some kind of grant application together, have it approved, and they could, in turn, the businesses could use those to pay their personal property tax for the upcoming year.
Okay.
So I looked at three categories. gyms, restaurants, and hotels. Altogether, I think it was like $180,000 total that is collected through personal property tax. So if we want to do all those, some of those, something completely different, we can do that.
So
I just don't know if it fits into the appropriate criteria for the funds, would be the only question.
So, yeah, it would fit within the framework as I understand it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's, I think collectively we need to start talking about just really the framework with which the county wants to spend the dollars. So then we can then take that framework and then narrow it down to specific spends.
So when you say that, are you thinking like, this is what that makes me think of? That makes me think some kind of like Vicki asked us for budget to talk about our big vision or big priorities. So for me, for example, it would be, and this is really not a great phrase to use with this, but like stop the bleeding where we need to stop the bleeding. And by that I mean, we have to fund public health and do vaccinations, or, just the stuff that's like very obvious. That would be my first priority, but then my second priority would be things that then promote future economic recovery.
Yeah.
Is that what you meant by framework?
Yeah, just, okay, breaking it down into, this is what we see as far as the need to both internally and externally, right? On government dollars as well as the public dollars, where we need to kind of shore up where folks got hit, if we need to do that, whether that's to grants or internally, it's, expenses that we have related to COVID so that it doesn't impact the general fund, those types of things. And then ongoing projects that we have kind of internally. And then, as you said, how do we invest the dollars so that it's more than just a flash, that we're actually getting that, I don't know, greater impact down the road, where, and additionally, where is it possible to leverage these dollars? Kind of like we talked about the other day, the state has a ton of money, the feds have a ton of money, and everybody has all of these other dollars. How can we leverage them to turn our 13 million into 18 million, type of thing?
What are your thoughts down at the end of the table?
I think Commissioner, I think you guys are both right. I'm trying to analyze this deal with Nathan's talking about. You said restaurants, hotels,
Gyms, it could be any category we can identify on it. I think one of the things in one of the statements in there that Vicki and I were talking about was,
I think you have this page.
Yeah.
that's the only hang up. I'm not sure if,
States are not allowed to use the funds to either directly or indirectly offset a reduction in the net tax revenue. We wouldn't be decreasing our tax revenue.
Right, it's like you're giving it to them.
yeah,
But I don't know that we can tell them, if it was like you're suggesting, like a little grant program, I don't know that we could say, you have to use this money to pay your taxes.
yeah, but
we don't have to say that, but maybe we could put in there, part of the
That's-
criteria of the grant is that your property taxes are paid. You can spend it on whatever as long as you pay your property taxes.
Yeah.
It's that might be a way.
Yeah,
Is that,
Okay.
do you have a thought?
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. You don't tell them where they spend their money, just say,
you're
Just
not
happens to be
eligible.
the-
you're not eligible, and yes, your property tax are paid. The problem with that is, there's a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot, there is people in the county that are in the rears with their property tax that were hurt during the pandemic, and
Absolutely.
there's no way that those individuals can get current.
Also,
I mean, I shouldn't say there's no way, there might be a way, but more than likely, those people wouldn't be able to get current, so we would basically then be excluding people that had, they were eligible for the program.
Yeah, the criteria, basically, you have to be current on your personal property taxes in order to apply for the grant.
Yeah, I mean, that would,
That discourages bad actors that, they haven't paid during the good times,
but the bad actors that didn't get paid in the good times are still getting hurt, I mean, they
Yeah,
still
that's
got
true.
hurt, I
That's
mean,
right.
So let's just use gyms. I don't know if there's anybody in the rears with their personal property in gyms or not, but you know, there was gyms several weeks there that they couldn't operate. Well, that cost them money.
Yeah.
But you know, they might be past due in their taxes in 1920.
Yeah.
And that excludes them from paying the 2021 tax. I mean,
I also feel somewhat differently about categories, right? So at some point you have to say, is it just restaurants, gyms, and hotels? I also, just based on what I've been seeing, I don't believe hotels in Klamath County anyway were hit all that hard. I believe restaurants have an other alternative, right? There's $61 billion that are set aside for restaurants that open up in the Restaurant Relief Fund on the 30th, as Vicki mentioned. But there's nothing for gyms. There are for shuttered venues like the theaters, and fairgrounds will qualify. So there's those types of things. There's some other small business relief stuff. But really, one of the industries that got hit the hardest that aren't really being addressed, in my opinion, in all of the other pots of money, because there are so many pots of money. Trying to read through all of it is just a chore. But I'm trying to figure out if there's any other places we can go get some more. Is gyms. And so if we were going to do something specific for an industry, my priority would be gyms.
small retailers.
Small retail was hit hard too, you know, the mom and pop Main Street guys.
Also true.
Small retailers were shuttered
Yeah.
when Walmart was open, selling the same, not the same stuff, but similar things.
Which is
Hairdressers.
Yeah, they were shut down for a while. On the first round, right? They didn't get shut down on the
Yeah,
second.
once they got to open, then they stayed open.
we were able to help a bunch of those in that last round in the CARES Act stuff.
Dentists, you know, dentists were closed. So,
Yeah, I think it'd be hard with the stuff that was shut just for the first time and then reopened. I think they've probably, most of them have gotten access to some kind of funding.
Whether it's
But it's-
PPP or,
More of the stuff that's still shut or something.
well, we're gonna go into another shutdown on Friday. Right, where again, it's going to be restaurants and gyms are taking the brunt. All the retailers can stay open. But again, there's an avenue for restaurants to go seek restitution, but there's nothing for gyms.
We have the ability downstairs to categorize however we want, we see fit, you know, so whatever you need, I can run numbers on, and figure out what the impact would be. And, you know, some people apply, some people won't, you know, it's not,
Right.
That's how it's gonna work.
Cool, but something good to think about.
Is this just, so is the thought, Vicki, that we just sort of run through some of these, or are you thinking of hitting,
I wanted to
let's
run
approve them or not approve them, or?
Either or. I can run through all the ones that I know of so far that have ideas,
Did
and
we actually, did we get our money in the bank yet?
it's supposed to be the 10th of May.
So before our next finance meeting? So we could, if we wanted to, we could have some like tentative approvals.
Yeah.
So Nathan had talked about the personal property tax and the property tax, both. There's two sections there. And then your data cloud solution software.
Yeah, Data Cloud is this piece of software that would work in conjunction with our current Canvas system, and it allows for the ability for appraisers to remote work easier. It reduces paper. It allows management to track. It's a safety thing. It's a very, I've talked to a couple of counties, they've increased their productivity and their appraisals by up 30% using this.
Wow.
Yeah, because you can do all the sketching, take the pictures, attach it to the account, and as soon as it hits a cellular connection, it uploads into the account. You don't have to do anything else. So
Okay.
it's pretty impressive. Yamhill County's been on it for 3 years, I think, and they're the ones that's, yeah, they said it's amazing. So
What's the cost of that, you said?
it's the initial startup cost is $57,200,
Okay.
not including the they run off an iPad, so we'd have to get 7 iPads for the appraisers, 7,000 probably, and then a yearly cost of approximately 15,000, which I currently put in my budget because I want was gonna ask this, but I think it fits in with the COVID relief funds.
So you would just be looking for that startup costs of, let's say, 65,000.
Yeah, give or take with the iPads.
80,
What do you mean 80?
60, I mean, the iPads, the cost of the stuff, and we might as well pay 1 year's worth of operations out of it too,
Okay.
so 80.
Yeah.
So what are your operating?
I mean,
So that would
because
be
if
an
you don't have a
80,000.
license, the equipment you buy
Yeah.
is useless, so
Right.
we might as well pay for the license up front. That's just what I think.
So that would go on to like an internal category, and we could start maybe listing those out as well as, I mean, if you go back into just budget hearings, we have all of those, almost every department had budgeted in that paperless project. We need to go isolate all of those and put that in that category as well and see what that all adds up to.
Right.
But that's exactly the kind of thing that I was thinking about as far as.
So how many people in your department are doing this now? 7?
7 field appraisers, and this gives me 5 desk licenses for management purposes. You know, I can, for safety purposes, I can tell you if an appraiser comes up missing where their last location was based on the iPad, you know, those kind of things.
What's your average appraiser totally loaded? 80,000, 100,000?
80 to 90, depending on seniority.
So this looks to me like it's a $270,000 savings by investing 80 grand.
With a 30% increased productivity.
I'm not saying we're gonna lay anybody off, I'm not saying that at all, but I am saying that if we get 30% productivity, you know,
It's
And-
the same thing as hiring 2 more people.
Exactly.
yeah, and we have attrition, we may not have to replace that person.
Exactly.
Or allows him to catch up because he's still behind.
Yeah, we're still digging.
Yeah, so, okay. I think that definitely should go on the list.
This is also the only company that does that, so we don't have to put it out for RFP. I've already investigated that. If this is something we're going to go forward with, is it okay if I put it on for the 10-day thing that contracting needs to do for sole sourcing? They have to post it for 10 days.
Is everyone okay?
I'm not gonna have any heartburn on
I'm
that one.
okay with that.
So basically what
Start
I'm
the
hearing
process.
is empower Nathan to start moving through the process.
How much training is there involved in this?
That's included in they're calling it 1.2, or 3 days, I'm sorry. 3 days of training, that's incorporated in the bid.
So 21 days plus 5, we got 15, we got 36 days.
36 days, well, 3 days of training, they're gonna send a trainer here to train the employees.
How
all
long is it
yeah,
gonna take each employee?
The 3 days, I got you, Mr. Stein.
So we're 36 days
Yeah.
worth of training. And, you know, that expense should be slotted in towards the operations of this too.
Why don't you get me a total figure
Sure.
of everything?
I'm just
Yeah.
thinking out loud, but, you know,
Definitely.
So, okay, so it sounds like there's agreement for Nathan to move forward with that piece for sure. And then do we wanna go through the other internal county ones?
well, if we're going right down through this list, we have the generator for public health medroom. That needs to be double what that is right there.
Yeah, I think Jennifer was just throwing out brainstorming fodder.
Refrigerator, freezer.
I see refrigerator for existing would move to the jail. Thank you. Are they
Thank you so much.
The assessor's office stuff.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, thanks.
These are great things, Nathan, thank you for the
You're welcome.
input.
Is she saying that she needs more freezer space? Is that what she's saying here?
Let's see here.
Existing would move to the jail, I think it's probably just an upgrade. But maybe it's a larger unit.
With appropriate data loggers, what does that mean? What's that?
They have a digital thing on them so that they have to keep track of those temperatures, and I think it's,
I see.
I don't know if it's every hour, but they have to record these temperatures on a regular basis so that they can prove that the power never went out or they never lost, they were always within the appropriate temperature range.
Okay.
So in my mind, they put a Generac in there and that's gonna cost her more than $5,000, unless it's a super cheap one, I mean, a very small one.
And I think they were just trying to get brainstorming estimates.
The refrigerator, freezer, and you're gonna need a disconnect switch and some stuff too, unless you're gonna backfeed the lines and then Pacific Power gets all upset when you send power back down there. The $10,000, I really don't see a reason to have these refrigerators in the jail unless they need them for food.
She says something
That
about the
seems-
nurse, the jail nurse has some great ideas to expand testing vaccines in the future. Not COVID, but important.
What did you just say?
The jail nurse has some great ideas to expand testing / vaccinations in the future.
Okay.
That's why she would think about giving the fridge she has to the jail.
And any of these, we can get the department head to come to an admin or next finance and make, specific asks. This was just a first blush, I guess might be the right term. I think we had all put out the, hey, department heads, if we do get these funds, what might be your wish list, right? So that's what she was doing.
And she put down, she's wondering if some of the dollars could go toward the Klamath Homefront project. And my thought on that, as long as it's the COVID part of the home front, but it couldn't be anything
the
else.
quarantine.
Right.
And then the clinical partners helping administer the vaccine, I thought was a pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, that's easily,
Why?
Why?
Why would we support that?
Just as sort of doing our part, since we only have so many, we don't have the ability via public health staff to actually administer a lot of vaccines.
Okay,
just
so-
to kind of.
I go to the Merrill Clinic and he backs, are you saying give some money to Michael
I
Sheets?
think, did she say what her thought was? I know she sent that to both of us, and I can't recall. I think it was when they have big clinics maybe to help support it, or?
yes, she said that a lot of people are volunteers, and so she thought maybe if we were able to support, we could use people that are actually gonna get paid to do some of the work.
Okay, excuse me if I'm ignorant, but aren't they getting paid anyway?
In her email, it said they were volunteers. I don't know.
That's not what I'm saying. Volunteers are volunteers. I'm not up for paying volunteers to do the deal. If they want to volunteer, they're volunteers. That's what they do.
Even
Talking
the
about
clinic.
Anybody. If somebody wants to volunteer to help run these mass vaccination clinics, they're volunteers. That's what they want to do, is to contribute to, help out with society, in my mind. But the people that are administering them, the paid professionals, the vaccine is provided by the federal government for free, but the labor to do it isn't. But they took my insurance. They took everybody's, I'm assuming if you were vaccinated, they had your insurance. They're going to put a claim against our insurance companies for all this.
Cover labor costs.
So it's not like these they have not cost the care providers. Now, probably somebody's gonna come flying in here and tell me I'm totally wrong, but in my mind, I don't see where it's cost the providers that are vaccines money.
One of the things I think that we could do as a county, and it may be a decent compromise, is for county employees that are wanting to volunteer, because these are all being done during the day, is essentially leaving them on the clock while they're volunteering their time down there. And then we could book that to a thing, and other employers are probably doing the same.
maybe, I think maybe having.
an idea.
One thought would be also, because I know Jennifer felt fairly strongly about this one, maybe having her explain like what the funding would go to, who is getting paid, who's not, before we, like, is that okay if we get more information before we make a call on that?
Yeah, and for me, I mean, there's some things going on right now, but I don't wanna get too carried away just spending money on small ideas. I think we really do need some type of overreaching framework of how, we have $13 million. I would like to see us start categorizing, hey, we're gonna spend $1 million on county services. Hey, we're gonna spend $1 million on X. We're gonna spend $1 million on, to address housing that was made worse by the pandemic. We're gonna spend X amount on job creation and economic development. We're gonna spend, you know what I mean? Those are specific categories, and then start narrowing down programs related to each. Because I could see us really just start looking at lists that get in front of us and spending money, and then all of a sudden all the money's gone, and what type of long-range impact did we actually make before we really put some thought into it?
Well, if you can get me the umbrella that has each of these pots in it, then I can put what people are turning in or so far under whichever one it goes with.
Right. But I was just saying, as a board, I think that we need to develop that framework and how we want to prioritize the dollars, right? Do we only want to spend $500,000 on job creation, or do we want to spend $5 million on job creation? We really need to start prioritizing kind of an overreaching framework and then start categorizing and spending it. That's what I would like to
When's
see.
this money have to be spent?
2024.
So let's buy Bitcoin for 3 years.
Like not an allowable expense.
I don't think that that'd be an allowable expense.
It's not an
in the
expense.
investment policy manual.
That is an investment. There's a difference between investment and expenses.
But
You're
does that
talking
make
about
sense?
trying to double our money.
Yeah.
Let's buy Bitcoin.
What if we do, so what if we each identify 4 priority areas and assign our thoughts on a percentage, or, I mean, we can pick 4, 6, 10, whatever. But,
As far
I mean,
as what
at
the
least so we get
categories
some
are?
handle. So like maybe Commissioner Boyd says, okay, I prioritize government services, the digitalization project, economic development, and housing, and I think it's all 25% or whatever. Maybe what if we all kind of did that exercise with ourselves and then brought it to the board and see if we can align them.
Yeah, spending some time working together and figuring out what those priorities are, and then setting those, and then kind of filling in the blanks with projects
Roughly
specific to those.
roughly 6.5 million is what we got.
A year, 6.6, yeah. For 2 years, so we'll get one on May 10th is when we're supposed to get the first check, and then 12 months after that is when we're supposed to get the check.
So let's figure out what the county, what we can use to boost our services to the citizens within the county. And that might be a refrigerator, that might be a generator, that might be digitation of the maps for Cheryl Hatcher. Personally, I don't think we need to spend 150 grand. I think we can do that cheaper than that. But anyway, it's beside the point. Let's figure out what the county can use the funds. And if that's $2 million, then in my mind, we're looking for how we're gonna prioritize that other 4.5.
Exactly. That's exactly what I think, that we need to look at what's sort of, again, I use the example of, where stop the bleeding, but like what's no kidding county services and what percentage is that, and then we can
And then address the
prioritize
rest.
Yeah. My guess is it's gonna be, big round numbers, I think probably $1 million or $1.5 million, and I would include the digitization projects in there. And then, so I think we'll have like 4.5 probably, or to prioritize with, again, whatever other buckets we decide. But I think everyone should put some thought to that and then bring it back. I
Okay.
mean, none of this stuff is like, no kidding, needs to be done next week, we don't even have the check.
Right,
Oh,
that's
I
by
think-
just developing the framework, I think.
Right,
makes
no,
sense.
I think Vicky was wise for bringing it to
Oh, I
this
do
meeting,
too.
and because,
I think I asked her to.
well, I think you were wise then, Commissioner, for
Thank
having to
you.
bring it to the meeting, because the reality is, we have to be pretty thoughtful.
Exactly.
$6.5 million is a lot of money. But we can spend $6.5 million without even thinking about it.
Quick,
So
quick.
we gotta be really, really thoughtful.
But this is, again, I think a good, and this is why I wanted Vicky to bring it, is that this really is a good first blush of like, what are people already thinking are some very natural fits, and then how does the board feel about those? Okay. So, should we move?
Can I ask one other question before I move? The museum, Todd put forth a couple ideas about the Baldwin and geothermal, possibly a heating and air conditioning system, and to me, that doesn't meet the criteria.
I think a ventilation system would meet the criteria. I mean, they're spending billions of dollars reventilating schools, because they're basically saying that you can have more people, it's basically the airplane theory. The more the air gets moved and filtered, the safer people are. So I think ventilation may be,
I don't even think maybe, I think definitely.
I could argue that one. If it's good for the schools, it's good for the museum.
As you said, Commissioner, billions of dollars are being spent on that all across the country, all with these dollars. So that
Well,
was,
and there's unions that are refusing to go back to school until they have it, and that's how that's how committed they are to it. I mean, it's,
the geothermal piece,
I can't, in my mind, I can't make that work.
I don't know how to get there from here.
That was
But the
probably
ventilation would be possible if that was going to fit into one of our
You know,
priorities.
what does 4 or 5 box fans cost? I mean, we're gonna drop $100. I mean,
Works for me.
not too big a deal.
Why don't we just take the geothermal one off the list entirely? That way, we'll, slowly but surely we'll work through the list.
And then the 1.1 million in lost revenue to Public Works. And then the COBRA benefits will come off too. I believe that's reimbursable through reduced FICA and Medicare taxes on the quarterly report. I think
Okay.
I think that whatever COBRA benefits we have to pay for people that are no longer here are reimbursable through the FICA and Medicare tax that we normally would be liable for. We'll reduce that from our report. I think that's how it's gonna happen. So, I can take that off too.
Did you say taking off the public works one? Or did you say you thought that was a good?
That's a good one.
So why
Lost
is
revenue
that
fits.
different than, so lost revenue does fit now?
Yes.
Before I thought it didn't. It didn't, okay, so that's
Fair
something that changed, gotcha.
How much fairgrounds lost revenue was there?
Oh yeah, I didn't add that. Not much because of the childcare.
The childcare co-op really shored them up, but probably, it's not gonna be a big number, maybe $100,000.
Well, I mean, it's
I think they were.
something.
I think they were projecting $300,000 loss, and they got $252 for the childcare rent, and so I don't know,
Well,
but
and they
went
were able
higher
to
than
hold some
300.
events.
It's not over yet though, so.
No, but there will be some there. But there again, the fairgrounds, like others, so, and this might be something to bring up, so I'm trying to figure out how, because it's gonna open up and it's gonna be fast. The fairgrounds is gonna qualify and apply for the shuttered venue grants, just like theaters, Ross Ragland's, the cinemas, all of those folks. So they may be able to get whole and then some with the shuttered venue. And so they don't need these dollars, right? And I don't wanna, it's not for people to get rich, it's for people to be able to be sustained.
Job creation, can we create jobs?
100%,
We need to put the switch in there for stop.
100%, it's on the white paper that I wrote.
It is, I'm just, telling Vicky she needs to put it on her list. That's worth $250,000.
Well, why don't we have, so this so far is pretty much county stuff. Why don't we start a separate category of job creation or something like that? And then that way, to the earlier point about having things in buckets, you know, we have the county bucket, we have a job creation bucket.
So let's
economic recovery
identify the
bucket.
buckets and then identify the spending.
Yeah, or at least get
County,
wish lists.
job creation,
I think economic recovery, which kind of goes in with job creation, but there might be things that,
I think you could put two of them in there. I think you could call them, both have separate columns for each one.
I absolutely do too.
Job creation,
Housing,
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 childcare. Potentially, not saying it has to be, but that's another category that's significant need.
flagrant self-promotion, tourism grant dollars.
I thought you were gonna say
AKA.
something with that. Tourism is actually,
Is also economic development, but that could be separated.
Well, they're, in our world, they're, you know, they are economic development, but in our world, it's kind of different.
What other categories are there?
so I have down government, wholeness or whatever, job creation, economic recovery, housing and childcare, maybe kind of together or kind of different, and tourism.
Talking about housing real quick.
Yep.
And you probably know this. Casita's working with a group of people to do this along with the county.
Yeah.
How much money are they talking about total?
So the county's in for one. They have private investment of another, I believe, 1 to 1.1. It's been varying. And I believe the financial institution that they're working with is putting in another 2 of their own money into that program. So there's
Well, it's
4.
their money, but they're getting paid for it.
Yes, but that is being set aside into that where folks can qualify to use those dollars.
But the county money was a loan.
The county money was a loan and not related to this. I did put in that paper that we could turn that into a grant as long as it stays in, being used for housing in forever. That's fine. The minute they stop using it for housing creation, then they would have to give the money back. That's how I had envisioned it.
Well, personally, the money that the private people are given, for all intents and purposes, is a loan. I mean, it's an investment,
Yes,
but they're gonna want a return.
absolutely.
So I'm just a little bit unhappy with the lending institution that is part of this. And for multiple reasons.
Okay.
And, you know, maybe the county could take them out. Personally, I don't think they need $4 million because they can't build enough homes that fast. They just physically can't build. I mean, $4 million at $250,000 home, for easy numbers, that's 16 homes at a time on the market, and they can't build them that fast.
Depends on how many builders do you have going at the same time.
Exactly, but I've talked to some builders that literally have said, I'm not even gonna participate in the program.
Yeah, I think that they're down to like 8 or 9 builders that won't participate.
So, you know, but the biggest problem we have today with building homes is lumber and trusses. You know, and TGIs, the resin that's gluing TGIs together they have no more. And so, are they gonna be able to build floor joists? Or are we gonna have to go back to the conventional framing with 2x12s? And so.
Availability is an issue
It's a huge.
for lumber and
It's-
cost, by the
It's a
way.
huge issue.
Yeah.
So, you know, brings up another project. Do we look for infrastructure to help support the building infrastructure, the building industry with raw material stuff? Do we recruit somebody else to kind of come into Klamath and, you know, and I'm talking rolled roofing, things that we used to have in Klamath Falls years ago. You know, we used to have a rolled roofing guy in town. Actually, there was 2. And one of them's still in town, but that may or may not be a good place to go. But I mean, is there opportunities to help those kind of people get back into what they used to do and put people to work?
And that would fall into the job creation thing, so potentially.
Sort of like the
I
contract.
guess I don't know what I don't know right now. I'd have to,
Well,
there's a lot of investigative work that need to be done there.
Lobo Trust right now is 10 weeks out for trusses. And that's if nobody else brings in another house, and that's not gonna happen.
The demand is, it's a great problem to have, but it's also a horrible problem to have.
Well, it's a horrible problem to have if you're trying to make a living being a builder, cause you can't buy trusses.
So it sounds like there's some brainstorming that we all wanna do on the categories. So why don't we each put some thought to that, and why don't we talk about it next week at admin too? This will be an ongoing conversation.
100% we need to be talking about it every week. Until we develop a good framework, you know, have a mission in place to spend
And
these
we'll
dollars.
take any feedback from you, Vicki, along the way. Okay. Thoughts that you have, or things that you hear, or concerns you start having, or.
We'll take it, we probably won't listen to it, but we'll take it.
She just smiled.
I don't wanna set the expectation too high.
Okay. All right, Vic, let's move to GPA federal relief dollars investment opportunities. Is that different?
Yes, this is, well, it's the same program. I just received, the letter or this memo kind of deal from GPA suggesting that we invest, 6.5 million this spring when we get the money. It's because we have a lot of liquidity available. I keep the LGIP maxed, and so really there's nowhere to put the money.
Bitcoin.
So they would like to, their suggestion is that we add it to the core fund, which is the investments, and then we have we still have liquid funds to pay for whatever we're gonna be paying for.
Well, that was your plan anyway. I mean, you
Yeah.
weren't gonna sit on $6.5 million in the bank.
No, I wasn't.
What's
But-
the rate of return on those investments?
Really good. Kidding,
0.1.
not good. It just depends on, I mean, they'll have to go out and shop it, and it's not good.
See, we could talking about that, we could easily be the bank for this housing project.
But do we have the internal infrastructure for,
No, that's not what I'm saying. We hire the bank, we hire a bank that does that to do it.
Is that, what did we do with the school loan? Do we have, are you having to manage that, or somebody else?
Yeah, this is a different deal.
oh, this would be
Because-
much different,
because-
inspections.
People would have to go out and say, okay, you know, I'm at 20%, and so you can request 20% of your loan to pay for your things. None of us, Derek might, I don't have the expertise to go out there and say, yeah, this building's 20% complete, and so we're gonna advance 20% of your loan. And all those kind of things.
I've done a bunch of them and it's a lot of work.
It's huge amounts of work, and so that might be another option.
You're talking about using this money to do.
We would get more for that. Honestly, we would get more for that than we would putting it
Investments.
in investment.
Bonds.
Because you guys won't let me invest in Bitcoin. But-
It's almost like somebody listened to a podcast about Bitcoin and is really on a.
But seriously, Bitcoin scares the crap out of me, to be really honest with you, but it's kind of intriguing. But honestly, you know, we could make 2 or 3% and build houses.
I'm just trying to think about how that would work if we're,
We could have a
More money,
contracted,
but the,
like a contract, are you thinking like a consultant or a contracted employee that
I'm
just
saying
does
we
that?
go to the bank and we fund the whole project, and the bank loans
Does
money
this.
out of our bank account.
and it wouldn't even need to be these funds. I mean, you could do that with any funds, but
That's literally how that works.
I gotcha.
They loan you deposit, and I'm throwing out a number,
Sure.
$4 million. they loan your money, and they take a fee for doing that, which is considerably less than the interest they're gonna charge to borrow their money.
What is the interest rate right now for borrowing for,
I think they're,
on a home?
Construction loan?
Yeah.
4%.
It's
four
more
and
than we get on a 3-year bond,
4.5.
a lot.
And
more.
we're talking, Vicky, we're talking 6 months to 9 months.
I just don't know if that's, I don't know if we can do.
It's a good idea, it's
Can be
intriguing. I would like to
directed
do
to
a ton of,
Well, there's absolutely no question, you gotta do a ton of work, but it's just, this is one of those things, Vicky, that you don't find out why you can't do it. This is one of those things you find out why you can't, because I'm sure you're gonna find something that says we can't do it.
Well, there's some restrictions within the American Rescue Plan about investing the money as well, so. we need to that for
I
sure
think
would
we
be the
would be
first
better
thing to
off
look
just
at.
using other dollars, right? We have other pots of money where we could do that out of, and it wouldn't impact this. It's an intriguing idea, I'd like to give it a lot of thought. I'm just trying to think of,
Here's another crazy thought. We help the school districts upgrade their ventilation. And in return, they pay down their bond measure, which in return reduces taxes to every citizen in the county.
they've pretty much done all of that work. They've gotten so much money to do all of that work, as far as
I don't know if they have or not, I'm just,
just a lot of schools have already done that work
anyway.
before bringing it in. Again, I get the idea, I just don't know.
All right,
So just for streamline, next time we talk about this, maybe Vicky, you could take off things on the list that either don't fit or we don't really have a clear number on, so that we're kind of prioritizing it that way. The board can be thinking about what buckets and priorities do we have beyond the government stuff. And that way we can kind of keep chunking away a little each meeting.
But to both of your points, going to the budget that we just looked at and pulling out expenses that would qualify for this, i.e. digitization and those types of things, we should,
Well, that
We should-
needs to be on the government list.
yeah, we just need to get all those on the list so we can add it up and see what it comes
So
to.
should we have, in addition to asking Vicky to clean this up, should we have Vicky reach out to department heads and get that number as well?
Yeah.
And then kind of have that, so what did you have in the budget that would be related to this? What are your also sort of other ideas or wish list, for lack of a better term? And that's all on the government list, and then we talk about other priorities off the government list.
Yeah.
Okay, does that sound doable? Everyone good with that? Okay. Funding requests related to, IDEA, SCOED, and I saw it.
Who?
Casita did theirs verbally, I don't know if they gave us the paper.
I haven't seen anything from Casita.
They did theirs when they did well, actually, the last 2 times they've come in front of us to give us their quarterly reports. And the last one they did, they asked for $100,000. I don't want to give them $100,000, but I think they should get something.
Klamath Idea is requesting $15,000 for 21-22. We gave them $12,500 in the previous year.
And looks like there's a memo from them outlining.
Yes.
What they would do with the money.
The approved budget's at 12.5, but in budget hearings, we talked about this, and there's more money available.
And I would be fine with granting $15,000 for IDEA.
So I think I think anything we can do to economic recovery, economic acceleration.
And she's doing a ton of work right now. So I looped them in. I had a meeting with SBA end of last week. And so there's going to be a big push that they're going to be helping folks with the restaurant relief fund. So she's going to be doing a ton of work in that arena as well. And quite frankly, I don't know. Well, anyway,
Just for
doing good work today.
be a little more formal, I will move that we grant Klamath Idea their $15,000 request for 2021-2022.
Second.
There's a motion now. Any other feedback or thoughts on that one? Comments, questions, concerns, heartburn? All right, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes.
Aye.
Or you're not, okay. All right, SCOAD. I just put this on, I didn't know if we were finished talking about it. The agreement right now is 25,000, they're requesting 30, and I thought maybe we could put this one to bed today.
So the last time we talked about this, I had mentioned that through the administration of a lot of the CARES Act dollars, they received a bunch more revenues. So I went back and had Betty send me the budget and worked through all of their stuff to see how flush they were. In reality, they also had a big increase in expenses because they had to additional hours for employees, additional staff. So they didn't end up netting a lot of that money because they ended up having a fairly close to the equal amount of expenses. But they have done a phenomenal job over last week or last year, and I can support that.
You guys are both, well, I think we're technically all on their board, but I
Yeah.
don't attend the meetings. Aren't you in a leadership on their board? What do you think about it?
I'm staying with 25,000.
25? Are you good with 25?
I'm good with the 30, but 25 if we want to stay there, that's fine too.
I personally think that she is going to be getting all kinds of money to manage for as long as there's CARES dollars out there.
Well, and to your point, Commissioner, that's a really good point, because if we decide to do a grant program for X or B or Y or D,
We're gonna give her a management fee to do it.
we're gonna give her 6 to 10% to do it all.
Does somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we grant them $25,000.
Vicky, didn't we already give them the 25,000?
I don't know that it was ever voted on, but I think that's where you guys were at the last time we talked about it, but I just wanna
That
make
was
sure.
my question, if we voted on it or not.
I don't think you voted on it. I think we took it to the budget hearings instead.
So now there is formally a motion on the table, if we didn't vote for, to grant SCOAD the 25,000 for fiscal year 21-22. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Anything else on that?
Do we want to address Casita's ask? They asked for $100,000.
Looks like, it looks
Just
like the
since we're on that
Oktoberfest
topic.
one is under the tourism one, but we can, if you
But
guys.
those were separate asks that they asked for.
With Casita, they're gonna have to give me some kind of business plan, where they intend to spend the money, what they're gonna do with the money, why they need it.
So they gave us that verbally, kind of walked through they had a one-pager that they gave all three of us, and I don't think I kept it. But the last time that they were here for their quarterly update, that was the end of their presentation, was that increase in funding and what they planned on spending it for. So I don't know if you want to have a one-on-one.
They're gonna need a lot more than they gave me for me to give $100,000.
And I'm not at $100,000, by the way. I think that we should cut that in half, because they do need additional dollars, because they're spending little things, some more marketing things, and doing different tasks. I don't want to get too involved, because some of those are probably not for public consumption today. But I do believe they
That's
could
one of
use
my-
some additional fundings.
And I'm not saying they don't, but I've gotta have justification to give them 50, even another 50, I mean, that's $250,000.
Right.
I happen to know they all got raises, I'm not saying they didn't deserve raises, but I don't think it should be on the backs of the county to support their raises.
Do we wanna have, cause it's been a little bit since Randy's came, do we wanna have him come to like a
About
work
6 weeks or
session,
so.
or, I guess, or do you wanna just get a report from him, or how do you wanna do
Well,
it?
my whole thing is, he doesn't need to go through his slide deck, he doesn't need to talk about, we just did that 6-8 weeks ago. I wanna know how he can justify the $100,000.
Do you want it in, like a memo for us to discuss next week, or do you want him to present it in person, or?
Well, to be real straight, I've never been able to go to anybody and ask for $100,000 without going to talk to them.
So are you thinking more of a one-on-one and a
No,
memo?
I'm thinking he comes in and presents to the board, why I need $100,000.
Are you his liaison?
I am.
Do you wanna ask him to do that
Yeah,
and
we
get it
can have
on
them come
the
do
staff?
it.
Is that good?
Yeah.
All right, number 6 is Public Works reimbursement Title II rec meetings for May. There was a item in April 6th admin agenda about Lanny attending the Title II meetings, and you still wanted to have representation of those meetings, but not sure where the money was gonna come from to reimburse Public Works for her time, so that's why.
Wait, is this our rec or something? Oh, okay, so this is something through the Forest Service?
Yeah, it's meetings that everybody that has a rack, they go, it's one of the grip,
Sure.
it's a grip and grit thing.
Okay, I just have a call from someone from the Forest Service that I need to return, asking me to be on one of those. I mean, is this something, do we need to have, this just be part of somebody's job, or does it really have to be a separate?
She
guess I'm
wants to
getting that it
go,
seems
she wants to go
complicated.
to a convention,
Um,
and so the question is, or one of those meetings like AOC
Sure.
that has, one of them is. So how do you pay for her time? How do you pay for the hotel? How do you pay to get up there? That's what she's talking
Does
about.
Public Works have, like professional development dollars or travel?
They can't use that. They could use it for something that pertains to roads. This doesn't pertain to roads.
Cause this is,
All of her time for other things comes from the general fund, non-departmental, like we transfer money for wolf depredation, from the general fund.
can Title III pay for it? It is, what, education?
Is it federal, is it just federal force though? Or these
The
state-
racks are,
The racks are?
both federal force for BLM and Forest Service, that's what the racks are.
You have to
Resource
ask
advisory
county
committees.
council then.
So I would wager, actually 2-to-1, that Title III dollars could be used for that. And pass muster,
I think it could be too.
and that's a good use of, I'm all about spending Title III.
I can get with Susan and see about that.
Tourism fund, we have a couple asks on there.
Yeah, there were you were not in
I was not in
work session last week. There were 2 contracts that came through tourism that we talked about that we might wanna give a little more money to.
Yes.
One was the Basin United Soccer Grant, it was the basketball courts, they asked for 50,000, the contract now says 48,000, that's what the committee recommended, so I'm here to ask if you want to increase that 2,000, and then Casita asked for, I don't remember the amount.
15,000 for Oktoberfest.
Okay, and that was short 9,521. We did grant them $15,000 outside of the grant process last year, and I thought it was canceled. But I got an email from Randy Cox that said they did have an Oktoberfest last year
They
to
did, it was like
support our
virtual.
local brewery industry.
Yes.
There is approximately $7,500 remaining from that grant from last year. They plan on using in this year's event, if they're allowed to have an event. So they still have that $7,500 left from last year. I wanted to let you know that before you start discussing the.
Where's that set? Aren't you holding that 7,500?
No, we paid them.
So they're holding 7,500, so that's really good information. So if they wanted 15, then we only need to give them 70. They already have half that money. So fully funding would be only an additional $2,000, not 9,500. So we're talking about $4,000 to, in my mind, fully fund both of those requests.
Less, well, yeah,
Uh,
a little more than that, but not much.
Well, the $21 they could find,
I'm good with
2,000.
that.
Yeah, okay. Gotcha.
just basically an additional $2,000 to each one of them. Do we have $4,000?
Yes.
So then I would move that we make an amendment to Basin United of $2,000 and make an amendment to the Casita Oktoberfest request of an additional $2,000 as well, for a total of $4,000 from the tourism fund.
concerns, Harper?
No, but let's vote and then I'll throw in my other comment.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. I can't wait. Bring it.
Toilets, gotta put this on the list. Toilets at the sports park, wash bathrooms. It meets every COVID thing there is, because they literally could only let one person in the restroom at a time because of social distancing.
That's that Steen's request that we got.
I just don't wanna forget that.
I have
Like
the,
Jefferson State, for the Jefferson,
no, they wanna build
they
permanent.
wanna build a permanent bathroom.
Well, there's a couple up there now. The problem is that they literally couldn't, they had lines 50 feet long, 800 people long, because even in the men's, well, believe it or not, you never see that. I know that's an anomaly, but because they could only let one person in the bathroom at a time.
It's a true story.
So my only,
So
and I
it's-
still have
so
that
Vic,
paperwork for
you'll-
that presentation, I can bring it in.
Yeah,
For
you can
next
get
meeting.
that from, that can go on to McMaster.
I just wanna make sure my only takeaway is to schedule Casita to come in and give a presentation without an additional request on the Steens. I'll give you a big work on Steens.
Anything else for other county business?
I have a concern.
Okay.
We are still in the process of getting the 401A account opened up with Nationwide. There's a concern because all contributions have been started deducting in Q2 2021, have not been sent to Nationwide, so they're not earning interest. Not to mention that there are some pretty strict federal rules about getting contributions into the employee accounts on time. So, I don't think that we will be penalized or anything like that. It's just, since we're just getting it set up, but it's really important that if we do stuff like this, that we make sure that we have the account set up before we start taking contributions.
Is that an HR thing or a nationwide thing, or who do we need to put some?
Well, it's on track to finally get open on April 30th.
Okay.
It's just, we gotta make sure that in the future we don't try to press for contributions before we get an account set up.
We just thought you should know that this was gonna be effective January 1, we pushed it to February 2, but it's still not open. Here we sit with a bunch of money that we've withheld, and
When did we try to open the account?
well, I don't think it was signed in the BOCC meeting until April 6th, so
And then they say it takes up to 6 weeks to get them open. And then apparently after that, they came back to Amanda and said, hey, we're still missing this bit of information. The most recent communication she had from them, which I think was maybe Thursday or Friday last week, that they now have everything and that the account should be open on April 30th.
So do we need to get back together with all the partners, Amanda, you all, our staff, council, and sort of revisit the whole thing, or do you think it's on track enough that?
I think it's on track now. I just would like in the future, if we make these kinds of payroll, human resource changes, that we give it plenty of time before we make the actual change so that we have everything in place.
yeah, we didn't realize it was gonna take this long.
Yeah, this has been a new project for everyone, but also it's been long. So it surprises me that it's like, really? They didn't have it ready to go when we were talking about this for what, guys, 2 years or something like that?
Yeah, but we didn't sign it till April 6th.
So,
So I don't know if it was an internal problem coming through county council, who knows? The reality.
well, let's blame them because he's on vacation.
Okay, we'll blame him.
He won't know. He's in Mexico.
I'm also gonna have a lot of budget resolutions coming your way. Almost everyone's behind in personnel because of the COLA. And a lot of them are in the general fund. And and a lot of them can't absorb it. So, just a FYI, the DA's office for one.
So that's why it's gonna be even extra important that we get that, what can we attribute from to the COVID dollars?
I was gonna say, isn't
legitimately,
that
and
an
kinda-
unbudgeted personnel expense,
Cola?
technically?
Not really. I think
It
that
wasn't
might be a
budgeted,
stretch, but
just saying.
I still think there's gotta be things in both public health, emergency, several, the jail.
Yeah.
Juvie, there's gotta be things in there that we can attribute to.
COVID.
All right.
So
Oh, okay.
Kelly was talking about
Bitcoin?
I must have been listening to some podcast or something.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of sports stars that are getting paid in Bitcoin. So I wanna know how I can get paid in Bitcoin.
That sounds like exactly what you're talking about, like, don't start something, don't tell Commissioner Boyd he can be paid in Bitcoin until we figure out how that
I
really
thought
works.
Bitcoin was going away. Didn't
I
I see
think
that
I thought it's
somewhere?
fake news, no, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. All right, we better adjourn.
Let me know so I can hit
10
buttons.
after 11.